Welcome to Small Talk Daily for Monday, September 29, 2008. This morning I'd like to pick up the Seaside tutorial where we left off, which is after we added the login UI here, and we added a custom session. We're not using that session yet, and this morning I'd like to hook that up. So to do that, let's move the browser out of the way, open up a code browser, and we'll head down to our package. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a new class. We're going to add a post editor. The idea here is that when the user logs in, we want an additional menu component to be available. In addition to filtering, we want to be able to add a new post. So let's create a new class called blog post editor, and we need this to come off of WA component, just like everything else that renders. And we'll have an instance variable of a post, which is the thing we're editing. So we'll say OK to that. Go to the initialize, and we're going to change this to read post gets post new, so we're caching an instance of that. And that's pretty much it for the initialization. What we now have to do is we have to add our rendering logic. So in rendering, we want to go ahead and we want to do our render content on. And our render content on is going to be as nicely factored as was before. I'm just going to paste this in so you can see what I'm talking about. And here, notice it's going to tell me it doesn't recognize half these methods, and that's because I've factored this as I factored everything else. First, render the title, then the content field, then the owner field, then the buttons. So let me just pause this for a minute, because I'm going to paste all those other methods in, and then I'll go back and review them. Now with that done, you'll notice that I've got my rendering code factored, and let's take a look at each one of these. So the title field, exactly the same as what I was doing the other day. I have a text input on title of post. And what that means is, for this part of the form, when we put this field out, it's going to be bound into the title aspect of this object. Likewise, the owner bound into this object, and the content field up here bound into that object. The only thing that's a little different is the buttons, and we notice here the way this works is pretty much exactly the way a GUI would work if we were building one of those. What we do here is we have a submit button, and the callback is answer true with save, and answer false if it's cancel. And what that means is when we invoke this thing with a call, it's going to return either true if the user said save it, false if the user said cancel it, and then we can treat this more or less just like a GUI. So let's see how that's going to go by hooking it up in Blog Root UI. What we need to do is change the initialization of the menu component a little bit to optionally add a new thing here. So what we'll do is this is where we're going to grab the session. Self session current user, and if you remember from yesterday's session, this will be nil if the user hasn't logged in, but if the user has logged in, the user will be cached. Now I'm not going to put in real security here by checking passwords and all that. I'm just going to trust that everything worked fine. So we're going to go ahead and add to the menu component, add an entry, new post, with the action self add post. And add post isn't written yet, but you see what's going on here is I'm saying add this entry, and when it's clicked, send add post. So now all we need to do is add a new category. I'll call it actions. And now we need to do add post in there, and this is rather basic. Editor gets our blog post editor, new, and here I'm going to do a call, self call editor. And if it's true, then I go ahead and save the post. And with my simple storage default posts, add thing that's cached in the editor. Now all it's going to do is ask me to define that as a temporary, and at this point I should have everything hooked up. I've got my menu component here rendering optionally this new menu action only if the user is logged in. So let's bring the browser back up. Let's try hitting blog view, and you notice no new menu options. So let's go back. Let's try blog login. So we'll log in as our user Fred, and let's see how that works. We now get new post as we expect, and when we hit new post, now we have a form. So let's try this. This is today's post. Hello there. And let's just go ahead and add a little bit of markup to this to make sure that that all works. Hit save. And you see it rendered fine. The only thing that isn't happening is I'm not doing this in classic blog reverse chronological order. That's because I'm not doing that sorting yet. So you see here I've got this one from the 25th, then the 24th, and then the 28th. They're just in the order they were created, as opposed to classic reverse chronological. That's something else I could fix later, but we'll leave that alone for now, and we'll go back to that. But that's pretty much where we'll leave it for today. We'll get to the fixing reverse chronological order and looking a little bit more at editing existing posts tomorrow. So until then, have fun with Smalltalk.